have an introduction here, and like I said, if you are watching, share this with family, friends, anyone who lives in Janesville that might be interested in our campaign. We're doing our best to get the word out, but it is not easy right now with how things are. All right, my name is Reese Wood, and I am running to be your state representative if you live in the Janesville area. I grew up between the two cities, Beloit and Janesville, and 2 years ago I ran for state assembly in the 45th district, just south of Janesville, in the Beloit, Orfordville, Brodhead, and Judah area. Like I said, I grew up around the whole area in the Rock County area, and I moved between the two cities growing up, and I kind of consider myself fortunate to have done that. I know a lot of people have done the same, and the two cities are not really that different. They are just down the road from each other. So talking about growing up in Janesville, I think the biggest takeaway from growing up in Janesville, the thing that really stays with me and always has, is the freedom I had as a kid in Janesville. If you knew me growing up, or maybe you were one of my teachers or somebody else who was acquainted with me when I was a kid growing up here in Janesville, you might have noticed that I had freedom. I was always riding bike, riding skateboard around, walking around the city. I, even at a young age, loved getting around the city, and whether it was downtown or anywhere else, long bike rides on the bike trails. This is a great city, and there's a lot to do as a kid when I was growing up here, and there still is. But the big takeaway for me was freedom. I know every Friday night it was pretty popular to go to the skating rink, and even though it's no longer there, that was the kind of freedom that even as a 11, 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, it was great to have here in Janesville, to have opportunities to experience freedom without so many parents around. But it was a great childhood here in Janesville, and a little different than Beloit. Beloit and Janesville, that might be a little bit different. Beloit at the time did seem a little different than Janesville. But what else? I grew up I attended a couple schools here. I attended Monroe Elementary, Jefferson Elementary, and Marshall Middle School, and I even went to Craig High School for a brief time before I went to Beloit Memorial, and that's where I graduated. So why is a guy like me with not many professional credentials, why am I running for state assembly? And why did I run in 2018 also? Because they are pretty much the same reasons. I care about the area that I grew up in, and I'm not so sure I'm happy with the state of politics in our state, including in the county, and some things that go on at the local level. And I can't just look the other way, especially when it comes to an election. I have thought about running locally, but for me, state assembly races, at least for this election and 2018, I see as a good way to get a message out, talk about issues that I think might not be discussed by other candidates. So here I am considering running. But what did I look at first? What makes a guy like me, who is just someone who grew up in the area and just came from the area, what makes someone like me want to run for office, especially state assembly? I looked at the candidates that had announced that they were going to run for the 44th district. I was aware that Deb Colsty, our current representative, was planning to step down. She had announced that, and I'm pretty familiar with Deb. I was lucky to interview her as a volunteer at Janesville Community Radio. And I also got to share a few forum stages with her in the 2018 campaign. So I knew who Deb was, and I'm familiar with her political viewpoints. I have a respect for Deb, and I saw that Sue Conley, City Council President, was also announcing her candidacy, and also Dwayne Severson, Republican, announced his candidacy, who is also a former city council member. And, uh, you know, maybe it's just me, but when it comes to elections, uh, I tend to want to see maybe not always just a younger face, but different ideas. I know a lot of people are skeptical of young people in politics, and I am too. So I got that going against me. But what I do care about really when it comes to election is seeing the issues fairly represented, and those are the issues that are relevant to you, the people in the community. And I personally didn't feel that either of the two announced candidates would be too different in terms of issues. Uh, I really do hope that the Republican takes a conservative stand on the issues that he presents if he gets on the ballot, which is a issue we'll get to soon. And I also wish Sue would also, bring light to the issues as she sees relevant when she gets on the ballot. But I definitely thought, this is looking like a limited race. And with the way things are right now with the pandemic, a lot of voters are not aware that candidates are just now circulating nomination forms, which is the root of our elections. That is where candidates are seeking enough signatures to get on the ballot. And with the pandemic, that's been made nearly impossible for some candidates and some more than others. So I took all of this into consideration. I knew it would be a challenge. And for some reason, I said it's a challenge probably worth taking, especially if we're looking at an election where possibly neither the Democrat or the Republican will secure enough signatures to get on the ballot. As I said, I'm sure they will, but with the way things are, voters should be a little skeptical of candidates actually getting on the ballot right now. We're not allowed to knock doors, which is a number one thing that candidates do to get signatures and to meet potential supporters. And public spaces are limited also with the now local stay-at-home order in Rock County. So candidates are really faced with a challenge. I saw that challenge. I looked at the candidates that had announced, and it looked like it would be a very uncertain election. So knowing that I had a little experience from 2018 and feeling that there was issues that would be unrepresented likely, I did what I believe most people would do, and I considered running. And here I am collecting signatures. So if you're watching, I know, as I said, all the candidates are collecting signatures, whether you want to support our campaign with your signature to help us get on the ballot, or whether you're supporting a different candidate. All of us need signatures right now. We're all in the same boat. As I said, for some of us, it might be easier than others. Some of us come from established parties that may have more resources to reach out to constituents and potential supporters. Whereas a guy like me or any other independent grassroots campaign might not share those same resources, although we do see a reason to work and get on the ballot. So we're doing everything we can. If you'd like to support with your signature, there is a link on the Reese Wood for Assembly Facebook page. You can also visit reesewoodforassembly.com. Right on the homepage, there's a link to help us get on the ballot. Just sign the nomination form. You're welcome to mail it, or I'm willing to pick it up, or you can drop it off. Everything is on the table in terms of options and getting these nomination forms signed before June, and I will deliver them to the Election Commission before June 1st. So that is the deadline. But let's move on to why I am running as an independent libertarian. And that's going to kind of get back to the ballot access issue. in Wisconsin, political parties are required uh, to have a certain amount of signatures to get ballot access. And in 2018, the state party, the Libertarian State Party, did not receive enough votes in our gubernatorial election to continue our ballot access. So this year, we are again seeking enough signatures to again get on the ballot as a political party. So that leaves you, the voter, with really only the option of Republican or Democrat. I will be on as an independent libertarian because libertarians are still allowed to identify as a libertarian, but on the ballot, that is a slight difference. It will be independent libertarian, not just libertarian alone. And a lot of voters are not aware of this from what I hear. So this is a lot of the incentive for me to continue running as a grassroots independent libertarian. I think people who are limited on funds and don't plan on raising a lot of money, but still care about issues and representing people, they deserve a place on the ballot if they're working to actually represent the people in their community. So running as a libertarian, it's been a long, libertarianism in general has been a long path for me. And I was not always a libertarian. And a lot of people think, you know, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or Libertarian or Green Party, that people are just one way forever. But about 10 years ago, I did support President Barack Obama in an election, and I have also supported conservative Republican candidates. So I believe that, like many people, that you base your support on the individual, not on their party. And that goes, that's something that can go a long way if we get more candidates trying to get on the ballot as independents. A lot of people have told me that they were not aware that the state assembly has never elected an independent candidate. They have either been Republican, Democrat, or quite some time ago, we did elect a progressive assembly representative and also, I believe, socialist Democrat representative. But we have never elected an independent, and neither have we elected any of the parties that you see today, such as the Green parties, Libertarians. These people are candidates and their parties seeking to be in the political discussions that are going on in our state. And these parties have been working hard. And I personally feel they do deserve a place, not only on the ballot, but in debates, in the big picture, and the discussion in general. So that's why I choose to run Libertarian. Maybe it's me just realizing that that's where the frontier in politics is, and just pursuing it. But I do believe I've spoke to a lot of people over the years. A lot of people identify as independent. That needs to be reflected in the assembly, and it currently is not. And we also talk about the environment in the assembly being a toxic environment or a highly polarized environment where one party will have the majority and the other party is unhappy that the other party has the majority. I believe that's something that can change by electing either independents or third party options. And so that's what we're doing. It's pretty straightforward. I believe in running a campaign and representing a type of change that is actually what it appears to be on the surface. And I don't think all campaigns are like that. I believe sometimes people have good intentions, and once they get elected, their intentions change course. So that's why I'm running Libertarian, amongst a lot of other things. I could probably go all day on why Libertarian. Feel free to ask me. I'm sure people will have questions. So the issues, I know a lot of people are concerned, you know, they don't want to even sign for a candidate to get on the ballot. unless you let them know about the issues. So let's talk about where I stand on a variety of issues and what are our campaign's top issues. Transparency and accountability. I know this is an issue that might appeal to independents across the spectrum, whether you're a progressive, independent type person, libertarians, Republican, Democrat, people who still believe that they're independent but still support parties. Transparency and accountability across the board, I believe a lot of people would like to see. And in the assembly, that's something that our campaign is proposing a solution just by getting on the ballot in our campaign, running an independent campaign. We're addressing something that historically has not happened in the state and could change the environment in the assembly. I believe that our campaign, if elected, I would be able to appeal to the decency that is within either party and representatives of either party. We need to find out which representatives really care about working for the agenda that the people want, that you, the voter, would like to see. But who are your decent representatives? I know another Republican or another Democrat representative might work really hard to also appeal to the decency among other representatives to work on policy changes that you are waiting for. But I think even more than a Democrat or a Republican, that there is room and kind of a calling for an independent to get in there and maybe make things a little different. I think that a lot of people have called for an independent oversight committee on gerrymandering, and I think that's a message that correlates to the assembly and our representation in general. Whether it's the assembly, the Senate, Congress, an independent amongst them could be a solution. It really depends, again, on the individual who's running, and do you believe that they are capable of the things that they're proposing. For us, transparency and accountability are a top priority. So what do I mean when I say transparency and accountability? I have a meme shared on our Facebook page, transparency and accountability. And the first thing that I could do if elected as your representative is use a website. Every representative has a website that lets you know resources that are available to you. But most of them, I don't believe any of them, disclose publicly how much money they've made as a representative off of tax money and taxpayer funds, also how much money is going to their staff and related spending. I believe that's up to the individual representative to be transparent and to be public about disclosing financial information as it relates to their office. And that's something that I'm willing to do if elected, that is be completely transparent about all the funds that come towards our office, whether it's paying me as your representative or paying staff. It is your tax money, and it shouldn't be hard to locate. You shouldn't have to sift through the state websites and search. It can be a difficult search to find this information, and it shouldn't be so hard. So that's a representative's role, I believe. And we're trying to set an example. I would not only do that, but as I said, I would seek out other representatives and appeal to their decency and try to see if we have other representatives who would similarly take that plan of action and be more public about financing as it applies to your tax money being spent. Explaining all votes. We may have some representatives who pick and choose when they explain their vote, whether it's on social media, website, on the radio, or other places in media. I see too often that our representatives will pick and choose what's politically convenient to comment on or to give you a full explanation. I believe every vote that they take as an assembly representative should be explained in a public place for you. And as your representative, there would not be one vote that I would not explain. And I think that could go a long way, especially if we could influence other representatives to do the same without the political motivations that get intertwined with those explanations. We deserve non-political explanations of what occurs when our representatives vote on our behalf. And that is something that I would like to impact in terms of the environment and the culture in the assembly. But I think just impacting the culture in the assembly and working towards transparency and accountability individually as your representative, I think that could go a long ways. And to be honest, it's something that has not been done in our state to date. It has not been done. So I hope you consider that as our top issue. I hope that is something that's also important to you. I know a lot of people have said transparency and accountability is a topic that everyone says they believe in, but what are the real solutions being proposed? And I hope I've put forward something for at least you to consider. Let's talk about another issue that a lot of people talk about because our politics have become so polarized. It's gerrymandering. And I know a lot of discussion has already taken place about a nonpartisan committee overseeing or being appointed to address redistricting in a way that would be not politically motivated. And I agree with that. That is an agenda that I support. I would support any policy proposals that would involve a nonpartisan commission being in charge of that type of change. But let's make a comparison at the same time. The assembly, just like the issue of gerrymandering, deserves independent oversight. And that, again, is exactly what we're trying to propose with this campaign. We're trying to be that independent oversight within the assembly. And whether you think that's a long shot or not, it is realistic, but it's a chance we have to take, and it's a chance I don't believe another Democrat or Republican is willing to take. I believe that that will be more of the same, but even that's just me. We do have a meme for the gerrymandering on a little infographic on our assembly page, Reese Wood for Assembly. Gerrymandering is important because not only does it impact Republicans and Democrats and create a disproportion throughout various districts, but a lot of Republican and Democrat representatives don't tell you that this greatly, more than them, impacts grassroots, independent, and third-party candidates that are trying to get on the ballot. And all right, we have one person admitting. All right, so gerrymandering applying to other candidates when it comes to grassroots, third party, and independents. You got to think Republicans and Democrats control the discussion. We have no elected independents or third parties. Where is our place in the discussion? If it's hard for a Democrat or Republican to have a fair election in certain districts that have been gerrymandered to benefit the other party, where does that leave the independents and the people that are trying to run on small budget campaigns? I can tell you it leaves them out in the wind and out of the discussion completely. So that's something I'd like to insert into the gerrymandering discussion. In addition to, like I said, people want an independent committee to oversee this. I believe that's a decent solution, but we also need that in the assembly. So just making a comparison there, that's where we stand on gerrymandering. Let's talk about another issue that I know is really important to Janesville and has been since 2003 or even a little prior to that, and that's the state shared revenue program, the formula for the state shared revenue. And our previous representatives and some of the candidates that have declared for this race have said that Janesville does not receive our proportion or our due proportion of shared revenue in the state shared revenue program. And I agree, every dollar that leaves Janesville should be allowed to return to Janesville. But it's kind of a rabbit hole discussion. We need to ask why so many dollars need to leave the community in order to return, and in this case, come up short. And why would we be currently assessed to receive a lower amount in proportion to surrounding municipalities? That's a question that I don't see the current candidates asking or talking about with constituents. Instead, it's let's get the formula changed and get that money. And that is a good idea. If we are due money that has left our community, let's get it back. But let's also ask why so much money needs to leave our community. Janesville is a great community when it comes to economy. We have diverse businesses. We have a diverse population of people. As I said, growing up here, this city has, I've seen how different it really can be, but that comes down to representation. Does your representative summarize us all the same, or does your state representative see you kind of collectively? And I know we're all different. I'd like to know where people stand on the state shared revenue. Do you think dollars should leave only to come back? And how much is the state shared revenue program as it applies, and the disproportionate amount that we currently receive? Have you looked into it, and do you believe that we are getting a disproportionate amount, or is it proportionate? All I know is that if you as a voter believe that we are not receiving the funds that we have given out, that we should get those dollars back. But the overall formula has not been discussed, neither by the candidates currently in this election or previous candidates. And that goes back to, as your representative, I would explain not only votes, but policy proposals. And we need those details. We need to find out what is the current formula exactly in a public place. These things need to either be posted or shared publicly, and not just motivated by political goals. I don't believe that a representative or a candidate should run promising that they'll secure more money, whether it's grants or funding of any kind, because it's an easy target for winning votes. More money is great, but it should be money that's due, and money that's due maybe should not leave the community in the first place. So it's a discussion that I'm open to having, and as I said, I believe money that leaves needs to come back. But it is a complex issue with lots of gray areas that I think the community should have more time to comment on. And that is like many other issues. There are gray areas. When we have highly polarized politics, as we have in our state, we don't get time to get into those gray areas, and they do exist. So like other issues, I'd like to give you, the voter, and the person who pays in taxes, I would like to have time for you to consider the real details of this issue. Let's move on from state shared revenue, but please feel free to comment on our Facebook page, or email me, Reese Wood for Assembly at reesewoodforassembly@reesewoodforassembly.com. That's a long one. The last issue I'm going to talk about that is also financial related, and this is only because I was asked. This is not a top priority, but a person on Facebook wanted to know if I stand behind the closing of the dark store loophole. And that is a tricky one. I know this is like many referendums that we've seen on the county and state level. We've seen the dark store loophole show up, and whether you would want it closed or not. But why is it such a political issue, and what exactly are the gray areas in this issue? the issue with the dark store loophole is that businesses are being allowed or have sued local municipalities to be refunded tax money at a lower property tax assessment. So they're getting money refunded to them after having certain properties that are vacant reassessed, and the money is then refunded for that lower reassessment amount. And of course, your representatives, your state representatives are telling you that that shifts the burden to the local taxpayer. And of course it does. Any local money that leaves, especially if it's through a lawsuit, that money is money and a burden that will then be shifted to you. But the gray area that your state representatives, at least most of them, they don't want to talk about the fact that they've already agreed and voted in favor of spending your tax dollars on development projects like Foxconn or the Pfizer Arena in Milwaukee, millions of dollars in taxpayer money that goes towards these projects when they could have came back to the community, and the burden wouldn't have been so obviously shifted to you if that money wouldn't have been spent elsewhere. But that is the reality, and that is the part of the discussion supporters of the dark store loophole closing do not discuss. That they are likely representatives who voted in favor of spending elsewhere. Of course, the burden has now shifted back to you. So this is a hard issue. Of course, we don't want businesses to file lawsuits against local municipalities and shift any tax burden. But what are businesses really asking? They're asking for lower tax amounts. And should they be allowed that? I believe that everyone has the right to argue for lower taxes, and that includes you, the individual taxpayer. Do you feel that your tax money is going to the state and not being utilized as it could, as I said, with the state shared revenue? How much tax money needs to leave the local economy to come back to the local economy for the things we need right here? Could there be more local money staying local? Everyone says support local, and I agree. I'm a big support local person, and that starts with funding. So I'd like people to consider that. I know that's not often part of the discussion, and like many things, that is up to your representative to open the discussion to the reality as it actually is, and to not limit it to the political agendas of one party or the other. And there's so many gray area issues that are being overlooked because of the highly polarized politics and representation we have in Wisconsin. Our campaign's all about addressing that. So those are the issues, and I'm going to take any questions that you have. If you are seeing this video after it's live, comment below it. I'm sure I said some disagreeable things. You are free to disagree with me. That is what an independent representative should stand for, being able to have differences that we can respectfully have and still be decent towards each other. First and foremost, I believe in everyone should be allowed to be bold, but be decent, and that's what our campaign's trying to represent. So any questions, feel free to post them on the video. Email me, reesewood4assembly@reesewood4assembly.com. That is a very long email, but you can also send me a message on Facebook, Reesewood for Assembly, RW4WIA. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Comment anywhere that you'd like. Message me anywhere you like. I'm always available. All my contact information is publicly available. And I hope to get some of your support. I hope I've opened some ideas, and I hope to add to the discussion in November, before November. but we got to get on the ballot. We still need those signatures, and that's at least 200, between 200 and 400 before June. So that is a real challenge right now. If you can spread the word, contact me if you need help. I'm willing to help do anything I can. If you're also considering running for office in the future, contact me. I believe that more people, regular people, need to run, represent issues as you see fit. And I personally would love to see some of my neighbors or the people that I grew up with showing up at the ballot to represent some issues that are very critical to them that they do not feel they're being represented on. And as I said, let's take some questions. I know this morning I got the what will be the COVID season suntan. I wore my mask at the Janesville Farmers Market, and I now have what I would call the pandemic suntan. I don't think I'm the first, but all right. You guys, I really, I'd like to answer any questions you have. And I think that now is the time for many questions, because I've laid out a lot of things that I'm sure are not common discussion. So keep sending me questions if you have them, and I'm going to keep up with you guys as much as I can. I hope everybody stays safe. I know these times are not easy for all of us, and it's kind of cliche at this point, but we are all in this together, and I believe everybody should do what they can as individuals to have a good impact, a decent impact on your neighbors and your community. You know, if you can stay safe, please do stay safe. Regular clean hygiene, wear your mask in public if you have a mask and you do that thing, please do that. Also, you can see I do that. Also, you know, social distancing. The county has said that it is enforced, or guidelines have been laid out through the 26th of May. So those are the rules. Let's be decent to each other and do what we can until things change. And I wish everyone well out there. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to get your support. I will talk to you all soon.